I could plan 4 more years, get in the best shape of my life, hit the Olympic trials in 2024, and get food poisoning and not be able to run. It's hard, but I think, again, just if you focus more on that journey and not just the destination, you can move past these things.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 184 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is beginning May, which means I hopefully am almost ready to step away from the podcast for a few months to be on my maternity leave. I will have episodes for you every week, so don't worry, you are not going to miss out on anything. But the only thing that I plan on doing during this time is sending my weekly email newsletter. So if you have not already subscribed to that, you can go to tinamuir.com/subscriber and you can sign up. I just send a once a week email on a Monday. I give you kind of something to think about, something that I've been working through during that week, and just some updates for you of what's come out, what I've seen, what I've enjoyed, some books, whatever. It's nothing serious. It's just kind of some recommendations and things that I think you might enjoy. All right, so back to the point. Today, we, as I said, are episode 184, and I'm excited to bring to you Tyler McCandless, who is, yes, an ultra athlete. He has done very well for himself. You're going to hear some of his accomplishments, but don't worry, this is not just focused on ultra. I know last week we had Brian Beckstead, one of the co-founders of Ultra, and we learned the story of them. But this episode, we don't really talk about Ultra at all. It's not about that at all. This was originally meant to be recorded at the summit that Tyler and I were both going to. So I set it up on the schedule. Also was going to record the episode with Brian, but it was cancelled for obvious reasons with what's going on right now. But that meant I had these two back to back. However, this episode with Tyler, I think, is really going to appeal to so many of you because we talk about like setting these big lofty goals, about not reaching them, about things going wrong, things being out of your control and you can't fix them yourself, about letting go of things, about being kind to yourself and being kind and grateful to others, and just appreciation. And we talk about juggling lots of things. There's lots of things in here that may seem like elite runners might not relate to you, but I really think Tyler does a great job. And we talk about these things that I think will be very appropriate to what you're going through within your own lives. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode with Tyler. But first, I just want to take a minute to go thank our sponsors, and then we will be right to the episode. Friends, just want to pop in here quickly to tell you about Ultra giving away a free pair of shoes every month to one of my listeners. And all you need to do is go to tinamuir.com/ultra. That's ALTRA. tinamuir.com/ultra. You can enter to win once in this month. And then if you enter in this month, I will enter you in every drawing for the rest of the year. So you have plenty more opportunities to win if this month isn't your lucky month. As you hear in this episode, Tyler is also an ultra elite athlete and he absolutely loves them. I have some recommendations of his for his favorite shoes at the end of this episode. But for now, make sure you go to tinamuir.com/ultra. You can choose any pair of shoes you like for free if you are the lucky winner of this episode. I want to thank Ultra for sponsoring me and supporting me through this year. They could have easily walked away from me being this a year of pregnancy, but they have not. They have stuck by me, supported me, and also celebrated me. They are such a wonderful company. And if you have not already been to ultrarunning.com and checked out their products, checked out what they're all about, I encourage you to go do that now. Thank you so much to Ultra. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me today on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited to have you here and let my audience get to know you, because I'm sure many of them have yet to see you and they should be following you, but I'm looking forward to hearing their thoughts after getting to know you today. So thanks for giving us some of your time.
Thanks, Tina. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And, there's so many different parts of you that I could easily start with. And for my audience, maybe tell them a bit about, if they haven't seen you or haven't heard of you, there's so much promise in American distance running right now, so it's hard to kind of keep on top of everyone. But maybe you can start with some of your accomplishments in running, some of the things you're proudest of that, will impress them, to be honest.
Sure. So I ran at collegiately at Penn State University. I was an All-American in the 10,000 meters my senior year, fifth year of school in 2010. And I've been competing on the roads for a decade, probably highlighted by second place finish at the 2017 Marathon Championships in the U.S. I took second place in 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 28 seconds. And I've just been competing in most U.S. championships on the roads, anywhere from doing mile or 5K road races up to the marathon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you for that. And that definitely, I would say finishing second at the marathon, US marathon trials is definitely some credibility there. And so people know that, you have some stuff to back you up there. And Tyler is also another ultra athlete, which that's not the reason I brought him on. And don't worry, we're not going to talk about ultra the whole time. Although if you do want, so I said to him that maybe I'll get him to give some recommendations on his favorite shoes at the end. So for you guys out there who keep asking me what shoes you should get, and I can't tell you, I can only tell you what my husband runs in, and he's not really training for anything. But yeah, so we'll go over that at the end. But this is not, just going to be talking about ultra. But I did want to mention that another person they are supporting, and some proof to you that Tyler is a good, genuine person, because that tends to be all ultra goes for. All right, so Tyler, you have a PhD in meteorology. I actually said that word right. I was convinced I was going to say blah, blah, blah. And certified, and you're a certified energy risk professional. What the heck does that mean?
It means I've done a lot of schooling and passed a lot of tests. So as a PhD in meteorology, I've focused my research on machine learning applications, mostly in renewable energy prediction, but I kind of run a broad spectrum of applications in machine learning to the atmospheric sciences. And what's really neat is meteorology, atmospheric sciences, earth sciences is a physical science. So we have physical equations that represent how the earth changes, how the atmosphere changes, how the weather changes. And machine learning is very statistical based and kind of a black box. So I'm kind of at the intersection of data science and physical science right now. And it's a really neat place to be, because I'm trying to explain very complex things and change our way of thinking of how we can improve predictability with machine learning and computer science, rather than with trying to necessarily better understand the physics. So that's kind of my research side. The energy risk professional side, while I was working more in the private sector, I'm at the National Center for Atmospheric Research now. When I was in the private sector, I worked more on the application of how renewable energy affected utility companies' risk portfolio. So a lot of simulations for them to understand how they could be reducing their gross margin at risk and ultimately improving their profitability. So that side was more on the financial trading side. So the energy risk professional certification, just hungry to learn. And that certification really broadened my experience outside of just atmospheric science and machine learning focus. So I'm just somebody who's hungry to learn, both in sport and in academia. So it's a reason why I have a few degrees and certifications.
I see that. And so for anyone who had the word meteorology and just switched off and thought, so you're a weatherman, would you like to clear up that you're not you have done a little stint from what I found in my research. You did do something on the TV related to, was it, I can't remember if you were doing the weather or you were something, but for the most part, that's not what you're doing here, right?
Correct. So when I was at Penn State University, it's a phenomenal meteorology program, and they actually have a on-campus studio where they do a Weather World show every evening at 6 p.m. that's broadcast statewide in Pennsylvania. And I did about 10 or 12 shows where I was giving a few minute clip on the primetime TV in Pennsylvania, which is really neat. And fortunately, when I came out for the Olympic trials, they were in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where the Weather Channel was located. And I was able to go on air live for a few minutes, kind of talking about the Olympic trials and the combination of weather and how that informs my running. So I've had some experiences being on TV, which has been really, really fun. And it's exciting and nerve-wracking all in the same. but it's not like my career profession.
Yes. Okay. And with the what you said, that your day-to-day job involves, the machine learning aspect of it. I'm not going to spend this episode talking about environmental issues. Don't worry, to everyone who thinks I'm going to go off on that tangent. You can go back to episode with Claire Gallagher if you want to hear that. But how do you feel about our future with regards to the way the weather systems are changing, with regards to the approach that we are taking, not just in the US, but in the world, towards renewable resources and looking after this planet better?
That's a really good question. So NCAR is one of the NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Science, is really focused on doing research for the betterment of society. Mm-hmm. And part of the betterment of society is understanding climate change and the factors that drive climate change. And I think now we're in an era where data is becoming more plentiful. Scientists are getting a stronger and stronger understanding of how rapidly the Earth is changing and what some of the anthropogenic or human causes are. Personally, my feel is that we should, as a society, just trying to be bettering ourselves and bettering our planet. And we need to be making decisions that act in that way, not acting because of a specific policy or because of a specific rule. We should just be trying to make the Earth better.
I love that. Good approach. And I think that's something that is good because it puts it back on your shoulder. I think it's very easy. And I've mentioned this actually in the episode I did with Claire, that yes, we know the changes have to happen at the top, but as individuals, and as long as we can keep saying, well, there's no point me trying until they change everything, then we're not going to get anywhere anyway. So I'm glad to hear you say that. All right. So moving on, you're balancing this demanding corporate career. You have Olympic aspirations, and a big goal of yours was recently at the US Marathon Olympic trials. You're also a husband and a father. So you have obviously a lot going on here, but I want to begin by talking about the Olympic trials because that was recently, it was something that you'd kind of been pinning your heart on for 4 years now. You had big dreams for that race. You were in that group of guys who had a shot to make the team. And you've always been very public about setting these big goals. Like this one thing, when I've seen things about you, you've always kind of really done that, like not been afraid to say, I want this and I'm going for this and I believe I can achieve this. And to the outside, it may have seemed a little bit like, ooh, I don't know about that. But you really, I've always kind of liked that you've always approached things with a very kind of like I'm going to shoot for the moon kind of thing. So why do you feel that is important to have that approach, and why share it publicly when so few people do that? Most people kind of keep these big goals to themselves and maybe say little goals, so that they don't experience that failure publicly if they don't reach it.
So, little tangential thought, and then it'll come back around. At NCAR, we did this study that everyone in the lab did this strength, weakness to kind of profile you as a person. And some people are process focused, some people are people focused, and some people are performance focused. And then obviously there's some combination of all of those. I was by far the most performance-driven individual in the lab. And that's just who I am. I'm natured that I want to set big, hairy, audacious goals, and I want to work my tail off to try to achieve them. And I think it's really important that you can set goals internally and never share them. But I personally feel that that's a little bit cowardly in that you want to share to inspire people, have people hold you accountable. But I also think in setting the big, hairy, or audacious goals or BHAG goals, they also need to be realistic. I've never said I'm a favorite to make the Olympic team and watch me do it. It's, I know I'm a dark horse. I am a contender. I am clawing my way to try to get on that podium. And I think that's a very important differentiator is I want to be realistic. I want those goals to be stretch goals. I, of course, in almost every race have, A, B, and C goals of, this is really what I'm shooting for, but these things would also be very positive and I can build off of. But sharing publicly and writing them down is just so critically important. And I feel like when you write stuff down publicly, you inspire other people. And leading into the Olympic trials, I heard from my high school head track coach, who I haven't talked to in almost a decade. I heard from people, again, that I haven't talked to in months, years, that were like, I'm rooting for you. It's inspiring to see you still chasing this, 10 years after college, 15 years after high school. So there's a lot of, motivation, and I get excited for other people who do the same. And I don't think we're a society where somebody is inspired by somebody who goes up, trains really hard in the mountains for 4 months, doesn't post anything, never shares what they're doing, comes down, rips a race, does great, doesn't do any media, and leaves. How does that build our community and society? I did not achieve the goals that I had set out, A, B, C, D, F, whatever level goal I had, I was way off of it. But I'm really proud that I at least set that BHAG goal. I put it out there, and I'm very happy to be held accountable for not hitting it. And it'll make it more rewarding when I do hit my next goal.
Absolutely. I tell people the same thing over and over again with, I'm sure many people listening can resonate with that. I mean, the common one that comes to mind for my listeners is probably, I want to get a Boston qualifier. And I see many people who say they want it. They try race and race again and, don't quite achieve it, or spectacularly don't achieve it. But then they keep going out there and keep trying again. And, you're very similar in that, like you said, you learn from it. It inspires other people. I mean, we would have just heard when this comes out a few weeks ago, you would have heard from Alison Desir, who said that she was inspired to start running because she saw a friend was training for a marathon. I mean, that guy probably didn't think just going out to run a marathon would inspire someone, just doing the training, but it did. So you never know who's watching, even if you're not kind of in the limelight, like Tyler might be, or like I might be, you still can have an impact there. And I think that's very true about what you said about people really, don't connect, don't feel that personal wanting to spur someone on if they just, people just disappear and then appear for race day. And I've always talked about my struggle with that with elite runners, particularly when they end up injured and then come up back and say everything when they're on the podium, like how hard it was, but you didn't see any of that struggle. So I think that's good that you do that. How do you handle the fact that, saying it out like that, whether you like it or not, adds a layer of pressure of like, okay, I've told all these people I want to do this, those people saying they're rooting for you, that's still, I mean, maybe it's not pressure for you. And if so, you can tell us how, but that's still, every little bit of that adds just a tiny bit more pressure to, you don't want to let people down. How do you handle that part?
So 2 answers. First is, I think sport is such a great metaphor for life. I know that's an overused phrase, but I always try to learn from sport and apply it to other aspects of life. Let's say that somebody's applying for a new job and they fail. They send out dozens of their resumes. They go through the interview process at a few, and they keep failing again. Eventually, with hard work and determination, they're going to secure the job that they're looking for. And it'll be highly rewarding, and people only see when somebody has a job change and congratulates them. Sport is a little bit different, where it's public. So when you fail, you see that every time. And a lot of times you remember the wins or the successes, but it's really those failures that happen that really build your character and make those successes so rewarding. So I think just being okay and being aware of the fact that your failures are public does take a little bit of relative pressure off. And hopefully you can learn from that and apply it to other aspects of your life. And then in terms of, the aspect of other people knowing about your goals and reaching out and pressure, it's all about building positive momentum and positive mojo. My college coach, Beth Alfred Sullivan, who was at Penn State and is now at the University of Tennessee, used to say, momentum, momentum, momentum. And when you have positive momentum, it's really hard to get that to stop. So when people reach out and wish you good luck, just think of that as your ball of momentum is just rolling faster. It's getting stronger. It's getting bigger. And I think when you visualize that and characterize it that way, you don't think about the negativity that they will also see your bad result if that happens.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for that explanation. That's great there. Okay, so before I want to keep going with that just a little bit, but before I go on, I have to ask, as you said that, I hadn't put it together, although I was aware she was at Penn State, but Beth Alford Sullivan, tell us about having a female coach. Beth is one of the, she probably is the female coach that for me comes to mind when I think about someone who's been able to achieve something and really make a difference in the college coaching world. For you as a male coming up in, those years where things weren't kind of being discussed like they are now, how did you handle and what did you like about having a female coach in charge of you?
I honestly don't feel like I was handling anything. Coach Sullivan was simply a great coach. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter if she was male or female. She was simply an incredibly positive influence on my running and my life. She had great training philosophy. She really cared about the whole team. She made it very clear that no individual was above the team. She entirely supported my academic career and my life and had a real care for individuals beyond what their results showed or how many points they scored at the Big Ten championships. So I know there's a lot of challenge with getting more women coaches. But in my experience, I just thought she was the best college coach I could have possibly ever had. She'll be a lifelong friend. And I never felt like I was handling the fact that I had a female coach.
Did all the guys on your team approach it that way?
I think I was a little bit different. I'll say this. My freshman year, I went to the University of Maryland, and then I transferred to Penn State. That was the summer in which Coach Sullivan took over from Coach Groves. Coach Groves was a great coach at Penn State for, I want to say, 30 years. He unfortunately recently passed away, and he had a lasting effect on the Penn State community. I think there was athletes who had trained under him for 1 year to 4 years that were simply sad to see him go. And then when Coach Sullivan took over, I don't think it mattered if it was Coach Sullivan or anybody else. They were still going to be upset that Coach Groves wasn't their coach anymore. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that there was any ill will towards having a female coach. Just having a different coach, I think, would be what people struggled with. Yeah,
and absolutely. I know I actually I witnessed that firsthand with well, not only did I have a change in coach between my freshman and sophomore year at college, but also when I did my MBA at LaSalle, the coach who had been there the year before I arrived as a grad assistant had passed away that summer, and it was really sad. Charles Torpy and Dan Ireland, who is now at Columbia, had taken over LaSalle, and it took a good few months to get the team to accept him, even though he was doing a fantastic job. He was doing everything right. Yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes teams just take a little while to warm up to someone, especially when it kind of comes unexpectedly that their coach is no longer with them. So definitely understand that there. And what would be I don't know if you would have any advice here, but for anyone who is a female who is looking to get into the coaching world, but is maybe feeling a little intimidated by coaching a guy's team, would you say to approach it kind of like Beth, treat no one different? Don't try and change your tactics, men to women, just be a great coach, the best coach you can be to the team as a whole, rather than, overanalyzing it?
Absolutely. Focus on doing the best coaching job that you can, supporting each individual and supporting the team, and have patience. It's not overnight that anybody is going to buy into any new coach, have great success, and inspire everyone. It takes time, and you develop that repertoire, that belief in a coach as the weeks, months, and years go on. So just focus on being a great coach, a positive role model, and you will find great success.
Yes, great. Thank you very much for that. And I think that can apply like you said, to any coach, whether it be a recreational runner listening who's looking for a marathon coach or someone who's looking for the first coach to start running. So really appreciate that advice there. Right, going back to the Olympic trials. So how did you handle the disappointment when, not only did you not reach your goal, like that goal of making the Olympic team, but it was, like you said, you didn't hit any of your goals you had that day. Tell us what happened that day and how did you stay in the game mentally if you were able to do that when you knew this goal was just slipping out of your fingers?
It was a goal you mentioned for 4 years, but it was quite a bit longer than that. I mean, I graduated college in 2010. I was one of the youngest competitors at the Olympic trials in 2012. I finished mid-pack-ish. And then in 2016, I had great training going in. I was overly confident. I led most of the first half. Just not smart racing, just overly emotional, feeling that I needed to prove myself, and ended up not finishing in the heat, dropping out of mile 20. I then, the following year, finished second at the national championships, ran a time that showed that I could be competitive at the Olympic trials in a few more years, and really just laid down focused training, worked with my coach to develop a plan, racing and training to get me to be able to be a contender at the 2020 Olympic trials. But something I try to focus on is not just a destination, but the journey to that destination. And I had the best buildup I've ever had for a marathon. I never had a head cold. I never had a workout that I would even characterize as an A-. Like, they were all A+. I was running faster than I ever have before with less effort. I was consistently running close to 110 miles a week. I ran a 103.40 something half marathon with a big negative split, and my fastest last mile I've ever run in a half marathon on a hot and humid day in Naples, Florida. I then set a PR in the 15K, running solo from the gun. And that was 4 weeks before the trials. The taper was perfect. Everything was smooth.
In my episode a few weeks ago with Alison, I told you about my brand new partnership with Tracksmith, a Boston-based brand led by a group of runners who are committed to making classically stylish, cutting-edge apparel. Have you had a chance to check out the website yet? This is such an exciting opportunity for me to be able to introduce you to a brand that is really making waves within the running industry. You know me, I love to root for the smaller guys, especially those who are coming up against the giants by just being who they are, allowing their quality, personality, and heart to show through. That is what initially attracted me to Tracksmith, and when I was in Boston last April, after hearing friends raving about the brand, I decided to check it out. I hosted a meetup there that they were kind enough to be the host of in their flagship store. I had no affiliation with them. They just wanted to be a place where runners could meet, runners could celebrate. We had about 50 people lining up to wait to come and talk to me. And honestly, that was the highlight of my weekend, because just getting to talk to people within the community, getting to get to know people. It was such a special time for me. And so I had Tracksmith as a special place in my heart. And then after that meetup, I really checked the clothes out. I was curious, what is the big deal with this brand? But it was clear that they put a lot of thought into making their products quality. And I love that runners could get running clothes to handle the often less than tender way we treat our clothes. We're not yogis out there with a bead of sweat that forms on our forehead just one at a time. We are out there pushing, striving, sweating, giving our best, and we expect that of our clothes too, or at least I do. We need our running apparel to be able to keep up with us, and yes, sometimes be able to handle 2 days in a row when laundry day is just around the corner. I can tell you how much I love the heart of the brand, but we all know that really quality matters too, right? And you're going to love the quality of Tracksmith's clothing here. They only work with the finest materials, from merino wool and the training tops to a unique nylon knit that's sourced from the best Italian mills for their running shorts, and all their garments feature details that let you focus on the things that matter. I'm loving the Horizon tank right now. There's nothing like the soft, worn-in feeling of a cotton tank, but cotton and sweltering miles don't always mix very well. Tech fabrics offer lightweight wicking performance that can feel stiff and tacky. Made from a dry release fabric, this Horizon tank combines the comfort of cotton and the weightless, quick dry properties of polyester. That brings you to a result of a sophisticated tank that is soft and wicking, durable and whisper-light. To welcome listeners to the podcast, Tracksmith is offering 15% off your first purchase. To learn more, visit tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. That's tracksmith.com/TINAMUIR and enter code TINA. That's tracksmith.com/Tina Muir and enter code TINA.
The taper was perfect. Everything was smooth. We traveled to the race on Thursday before a Saturday race, my wife and my 7-month-old Levi, Kristen and Levi. And we had some troubles on travel. We get in and we struggle with Uber. We get to the hotel. They tell us they're out of cribs. We're like, we have a 7-month-old. And I had requested it, called in advance, made sure they would have a crib. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, we're all out of cribs. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't even know what to do. It started at 7 p.m. when we checked in. It's now 8 p.m. They still can't find a crib. It's 8:30. It's past Levi's bedtime. He's getting upset. It took us going down, making phone calls. They finally found one, brought it in. But then, of course, Levi doesn't sleep well. It was just all right, I need to get past this night, move on, take a day, do all my things, get my bottles, do the technical meeting. Everything goes fine the day before. And my taper was great. My legs felt good. I felt fresh. I felt like I did very well on nutrition. All the controllables, I felt like I controlled very well. I had my parents and Kristen's parents there, my family, my coach, my training partners, just great support system. Even friends from Colorado flew out to cheer me on. It was just really, I couldn't have felt better at the start line. The race starts and it starts fast and surprisingly fast, given that it was such a hard course and it was very, very windy. And I just situated in the back of the lead pack, trying to be patient. A couple of surges happened and I would kind of let it string out and I would catch back up. The aid stations were a complete and utter disaster, being in a pack of about 60 or 70 guys. I came to a complete stop. At one point, I think I two-handed shoved somebody who stopped in front of me right before my table. So there was a lot of surging then to catch back up while still trying to maintain that patience. Regardless, at mile 10, I ran a 4:50 and got dropped from the lead pack. I was like, we are going insanely fast, but I still felt as good as I could running that pace. I went through half in 106.10. I think I was about 25 or 30 seconds off the leaders, but I thought there's no way that they're going to keep up this pace. At about mile 17, things started getting tougher, and then they spiraled out of control a little bit differently than I've had in other marathons. Where I've bonked in other marathons before, I've gone out too fast. This also felt just a little bit different. I was extremely thirsty at one point, and I had taken all of my bottles, taken 4 to 5 ounces of Martin. I've perfected this. I've done it in other marathons. I've done it on every long run. I know what I need. I actually grabbed a Dasani water bottle at one of the aid stations and chugged the whole thing at mile 25. I just felt that off, that dehydrated when I shouldn't have been. So I crossed the finish line just after going very, very far backwards over the last 8 or 9 miles. I grabbed my belongings, trying to, collect myself. There's so many emotions that go on. The cheering was so loud. The Atlanta Track Club did the best job. It was one of my favorite marathons, even though I had a very bad showing. So the way the course was set up, the start and finish were just a block from our hotel.
Can I just pause you there before we go to the after race and stuff? I just want to go back into the race for a minute because, and then we'll kind of unpack this from finish onwards afterwards. During the race, what were you mentally saying to yourself when, that must have been hard. It's interesting hearing you say that because I listened to Jared Ward on the Matt Chittum Road to the Olympic Trials podcast, and he kind of said it in pretty much the same way as you did, what he described how he'd been feeling. He didn't mention thirsty, but he said about how, he was so shocked by how fast it was, how he kept thinking, people will fall off. I've done the training. But at a certain point, you would have realized that I'm not getting any closer to the front, I'm getting further forward. So what was going through your mind, and how were you able to keep going as I'm assuming more and more people started to pass you? Like, what were some of the negative things you were saying to yourself, and how were you kind of drawing yourself back to the moment to keep going?
Yeah, it's really hard. I can't say that I executed the best when it started going poorly. I spent a lot of time trying to positive self-talk, focusing on just getting to the next mile marker, getting to the next turn, seeing the guy in front of me, trying to catch somebody else who was falling off, trying to do those little things, knowing I was continuing to slow down. But I wanted to finish that race. I think it's very poor to quit when you're having a bad day. If you drop out of a race because you feel there's a health consequence, at the 2016 Olympic trials, I dropped out. I was no longer sweating and I had the chills at mile 18. I was like, all right, this heat is affecting my body in a way that suffering through the finish might have more longer consequences. There's a point where you need to make a smart decision, but just because you're having a bad day does not mean that you should show up as a DNF so that people don't see your result. I feel like my pride wanted me to get across that finish line and be very grateful for everyone that supported me to help me get there, regardless if I ran 2 hours and 24 minutes or 2 hours and 10 minutes.
And was the temptation there though? Like, did you have moments where you were like, well, I could just stop?
Actually, no. Okay. It never crossed my mind that I should stop, because nothing in my mind triggered that there was necessarily a health concern. I didn't feel right, but I was also like, can you really have great feelings at mile 23 of a marathon, But I never considered dropping out.
Okay. And then what about, like, you said that you were using positive self-talk. Can you give us an example of something that you would have said to yourself? Like, maybe it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you slowing down? Or why can't you keep up with these people? And then what was your response? Like, you said positive self-talk. What did you say? What was the negative thought you had? And what did you say back to it? Just so people can really kind of get in your mind as to, what's going on mentally for these elite runners at the top of the pack here.
So I can't say I distinctly remember a specific negative thought, but I know when I was having the realization that it was occurring that I was not running 5:0 something pace. I was running 5:30 or 5:40 pace and slowing down from there, and still had a considerable amount, 10K to go. I turned to think to those that support me the most. Something I do in races is I'll kiss my wedding ring, because, my wife, Kristen, is beyond positive, encouraging, and supportive. I can't articulate that to the level of how much she supports. So, by kissing the ring and thinking of her and thinking of Levi, it kind of brings you back to the why of what you're doing. Here it's not of just making the Olympic team or not. It's setting a goal, making it known, and hopefully inspiring others, and trying so hard to achieve it. And when you have the support system of the people that love you, your family, reflect back on that, and it'll get you through the hard times, and it'll be way more rewarding on the good times.
Yeah, thank you. That's so nice that you have that relationship, but also a good reminder for all of us, even if it's not necessarily a spouse. It could be, everyone's got someone in their life who is supportive in that way. And when you were getting to those final miles, you mentioned mile 25, taking down that whole bottle of water. To do something like that, to drink that much water, you kind of have, I don't want to say like you've given up on performance, but in a way it kind of is, because you and I both know, as well as many of the listeners, that if you're going to chug a whole bottle of water, that's probably not going to sit the best in your stomach. So you're kind of taking the risk there. But during at that point, and when the wheels are really falling off, how did you not get to this, I'm just going to jog it in, I'm going to cross the finish line, and kind of mentally give up? Did you? And if not, how did you manage to keep fighting even when, things were, beyond what you could have ever expected with how bad they were going?
So I would say my mind was still focused on the best performance I could.
Okay.
I knew that I was slowing down. And in my mind, granted, it's mile 25, the marathon, I might not be thinking as clearly. I was like, I am really apparently dehydrated, very thirsty. I need this water. The risk of it sitting awkwardly in my stomach might be better than the risk of getting more dehydrated and, cramping or having to walk. So even if it slowed me down.
I'm very impressed with your rationalization. This is amazing thinking. I can't even add like 1 + 1 at mile 25. You have a very, your brain is obviously able to process things a lot better than mine is. I can't even imagine thinking that to myself at mile 25, but keep going. Sorry.
Well, I think that's a very good point. In the heat of the moment when things are going well, you think very little. I remember being at mile 25 of the marathon that I took second in at the National Championships 2017, and I could barely think. I was just like focused on getting to that finish line. At one point, I thought about somebody important in my life who had passed away, and that he would be proud of me. And I was like, don't get too emotional, just run. It's like, when things are going really well and you're in that heat of the athletic moment, your mind almost goes blank. You're really in that state of flow. When you're slowing down, you have a little bit more time to think a little bit more critically. And that was a spot where I was like, what do I need to do to get to the finish in the best shape I can? And that to me was just chugging that bottle of water.
Thank you to Generation UCAN for supporting me and Running for Real. I've been using UCAN for several years now because it is a stable, stomach-friendly fuel for my running and busy life. I love adding UCAN to my smoothies for a long-lasting energy boost or grabbing a bar when I'm on the go. And I can't always eat immediately before I go, so I love that I can always just grab one of these while I'm on my way out the door. Actually, speaking of that, recently I was running so late that I was eating a bar while running to the gym. My gym is thankfully quite close to where I live. And I was running along the road from my house to the gym, eating my Generation UCAN bar. Didn't have any stomach upsets, but that shows you, one, how determined I am to get my UCAN bar in, and two, how good it is for the stomach that I didn't have to worry about that, even though I went straight to the gym and then straight out on a run after that. I absolutely love these UCAN bars, and there's a new UCAN Energy Plus Protein energy bars as well. So you can go visit generationucan.com to try it out and save 25% on your first order with code TinaMuir25. And if you're already a UCAN fan, you can save 15% with Tina UCAN 15. So that's code TinaMuir25 for 25% off if you are a new user. Or if you're already a UCAN fan, you can save 15% off with code TinaUCAN15. Now, I've made it pretty clear that I absolutely love these products. I said about having them in smoothies. I put 2 scoops in my smoothie every day that I have with my daughter Bailey, throw some leafy greens in there, throw some orange juice in there, throw a variety of frozen fruits in there, and a spoonful of almond butter. And that's how we love to have our mid-morning snack smoothie. And I love that Generation UCAN is a part of that and helping me to add in that protein, which I'm not the best at getting. I want to thank Generation UCAN for sponsoring this episode. And remember, you can go to generationucan.com and you can use code TinaMuir25 for 25% off your order if this is your first time using it, or TinaUCAN15 for 15% off if you are already a UCAN fan. All right. And then, so we said you finished, you got your block to get to the hotel. Carry on from that moment.
Yeah, so I walked incredibly slowly back. I felt progressively worse and worse, which I thought was a little bit weird because normally after having something to drink and getting on warm clothes, you feel a little bit better. And then normally you take a hot shower and you continue to wash away the bad race, reflect on it, talk to those you love, and start the process of healing. But in this case, I walked back. And I immediately got under the covers and I had the chills. And I was like, maybe just running a marathon has upset my body and I'm really depleted. I just need to relax. Well, what ended up happening was that started a wave of almost 4-day fever that I had that got progressively worse and worse. It was a really odd, strange feeling. And I came home and I was just so sick for almost 7 to 10 days after breaking the fever. I truly haven't been that sick since probably high school. So, 15 years previously. And it was just a shame. I mean, I did everything that I felt was right and within my control to avoid getting sick. I even went so far as I have hand sanitizer literally everywhere all the time. Mm-hmm. I would wipe down the handles of the doorknob at my office just in case somebody was bringing in sickness. I took the liberty to work from home occasionally in the couple of weeks leading up to the race because I didn't want to get sick. And then here I get sick on the day of the Olympic trials. And I don't know exactly what would have happened if I hadn't run a marathon. Maybe I never would have shown symptoms or would have been much less of a sickness. I'm not sure. But basically in the week that followed, then Kristen fought off it, but she felt that she had the sickness. My 7-month-old, he ran a high fever one day, and then he was sick for a few days afterwards. So I honestly didn't really have the time to process what truly went wrong with the race and what happened. It was more of like damage control. How do I get healthy again? How do I, be able to work? I had to take some PTO because I couldn't even look at my laptop and do research, Yeah. So it was a very strange incident after the marathon to have that happen when I think it goes back to like, if you enjoy the journey and not just the destination, to me, it wasn't as crushing once I got over it. It was like, that's really bad timing. I don't know exactly how much that virus affected my race. Maybe I could have done something strategically different in the race, including going out slower, et cetera. But I don't want to also like reflect too much on race strategy when I clearly had something that was going on in my body. I clearly had a virus that I was fighting, and that likely impacted the race and makes sense a little bit of like why I felt so dehydrated and thirsty towards the end of the race. So
do you feel in many ways that with it, obviously you didn't want it to happen that way. Obviously you would not want to feel sick or know that was impacting you during the race, but do you feel in any way like it kind of almost made it a little bit easier for you to emotionally heal from that race? Because like you said, you were kind of in survival mode for that 7 to 10 days after the race. So it kind of removed that, like, had you been healthy, that like pity party or kind of that, just the kind of, the grieving, the healing process. Instead, it kind of distracted you with, forget about the race. I just want to feel like normal again. Do you think any part of it kind of helped you to not see it as a big failure and to not kind of overanalyze it, or would you not have done that anyway?
I probably would have felt it more as a failure and worked a little bit harder to understand what went wrong had I not gotten sick, because ultimately I want to improve and you need to learn from your mistakes. Mm-hmm. Most of my best races have come after one of my worst races in the training cycle before it. You learn from it and you grow. Mm-hmm. I think this was a little different in that I don't want to spend too much time reflecting back on if I did anything wrong in the race because of the sickness. I think the hardest part is, it's been 4 years in this Olympic cycle. But as I said, it's really been 10 years since graduating college that I've been racing on the roads. And I'm 33, so I'm at least entering my prime. I think Meb and Abdi and others show that, you can be in your prime into your even early 40s. So I hope I still have a long career ahead of me. But this was like a once in every 4-year opportunity that I don't know what I could have done differently to keep from getting sick. And the fact is that there's going to be things outside of your control that happen that could ruin an opportunity that you put so much energy into. emotional and physical energy, and not just you, but the team around you, your family. Like I feel so bad for, my wife and my coach that they sacrifice so much, my parents and my wife's parents who came and, they sacrificed their time, their money. And I know that they're genuinely happy to support, but sometimes things happen outside of your control that ruin great opportunities. And I'm honestly just a little sad about that. And, I could learn from everything I can, plan 4 more years, get in the best shape of my life, hit the Olympic trials in 2024 and get food poisoning the day of the race or something and not be able to run. So it's hard, but I think again, just if you focus more on that journey and not just the destination, you can move past these things.
And do you feel like you already had that kind of approach, or has this experience, the fact that you controlled basically everything you could and it was something that you couldn't control that got you? Did you learn that during this last few, months since the trials, or was it something that an approach you had before even this race happened?
It was honestly something that Coach Alfred Sullivan instilled upon me in college. I think on my locker, I had something like enjoy the journey every step along the way that I just like printed out and taped on my locker. And since graduating college and working with my coach, Steve Jones, when I had that breakthrough marathon and dropped my PR from 2:15 to 2:12, he's like, great, that was 6 years of work. Let's continue on. It's like, it's not just the immediate gratification. It really is a delayed gratification. So just knowing that we're in a sport that requires such consistency and a long-term approach, I think it really instills that belief of like, you really do need to enjoy the journey because you never know what the destination's going to hold. There could be, Hurricane Sandy that cancels the New York City Marathon and you were planning to go. I went to Naples, Florida to run a half marathon, and this thunderstorm blew through that knocked over trees and power lines in the course just 3 hours before the race, and it was canceled. And that was my tune-up for the 2016 trials. So you just never know what can happen that can, change the trajectory of what you're going for. So really trying to focus on that present moment. And this race, to answer your question directly, only exemplified my approach to focusing on the journey and not the destination. But I wouldn't say it changed my course to doing so. Okay.
And, us recording this in late March, obviously everyone listening will have, by the time this comes out, had some practice in that. And you said about unexpected things. I don't think any of us would have expected this. And in many ways, this has kind of been one of the craziest things that's ever happened in our lives. So, I think we're all getting a good lesson in that. And you've always been someone who's a big believer in kind of not only that, but seeing gratitude in every situation. Now, it's very easy for once you get gratitude and you understand not even understand, but you see the power of it, of how much it works. It's easy to keep going with it, but you can understand it on an intellectual level, but seeing the power of it is quite difficult for someone who feels like they've never been able to do it, never been able to stick to it, and saying, okay, well, it's good. I can do gratitude when things are going great, but like these last few months, I can't do it when things are just tough. It's too hard. So what advice would you have for someone to change their approach to be able to see that gratitude if they understand the logic of it, but just haven't felt the magic of how it helps yet?
So there's, I think, some study and some science behind that. It takes approximately 2 weeks before doing something becomes a routine. So really starting small with consistency in something. So right now, we're undergoing this pandemic and this social distancing. We're all social creatures, and I'm very thankful for the friends that I have. So I've taken the notion that I'm trying to text a friend every single day who I may not have texted or communicated otherwise, to say hi, to check in, to see how they're doing, to see if they need anything, and just trying to start a habit of that so that you're having a positive influence. So I would say if somebody's trying to really bring gratification to the forefront of their lives, start with something that you can do small every day. Focus on just doing that specific thing in the here and now, and you will build your sense of gratification and that habit and ultimately your character over time.
Absolutely. Great advice there. And as my listeners know, I am also pushing the exact same thing as you there. And I will remind people that not only think about how amazing it feels when you hear from someone who you haven't spoken to in a while, or you know that they've taken the time to reach out to you and above everyone they could have reached out to that it's you. But not only that, but after you do it, after you send a few of these messages, voice memos, FaceTime, text, email, whatever it may be, maybe don't send letters right now. We want to maybe stay away from that for the time being. But once you actually let it out into the world, you feel so good. And Tyler, I don't know if you agree, but it sends this rush of just an endorphin rush, because you're like, wow, I know I didn't have to reach out to that person. There was no one telling me to do it. I just did this because I care about this person and I want them to know that. And it feels good to do it as well as to receive it. So do you find that as well after you send them?
Yeah. And to exemplify that, it's really getting outside of your comfort zone is where you grow the most. So it might be the easiest to text, somebody that you see every day, but how about texting somebody that you might be more outside your comfort zone to reach? And that might be, for example, I have tons of friends who ran the Olympic marathon trials, and I don't know if I was the only person that was sick that day, but other people had the best days of their life. And thank them. Say, hey, I just want to say great job on that. I'm very proud to know you as a friend. Well done. And it's hard to do coming from a place of a little bit of remorse and, sadness that your own personal goal didn't get achieved that day. But that makes you just a little bit more mature, and you just grow as an individual when you do that.
So true. So true. And I just want to add my person today was my athletic trainer at the university I went to for school. Now, if you guys want to talk about getting outside the box, how's that? Full disclosure, he's been a friend for years, but I haven't spoken to him in probably 2 years. That was my person today. As Tyler said, getting outside your comfort zone, be it someone who you don't normally reach out to, do it. I want to hear from all of you. Tweet at Tyler, or Instagram, whatever, Facebook, at Tyler and I. Tell us who you have reached out to today. Really would love to hear who you're doing that for right now. Okay, let's move on a bit here. Okay, so when you reached out to me with kind of some things that you thought might be interesting to talk about, I had already written up some questions for you or some topics, but you mentioned to me about your wife saying you are multidimensional, something that makes you unique in the sport. So you have this full-time career, you already mentioned. You run over 100 miles a week. You've also mentioned that husband as a dad as a priority, and anyone who looks at your social media for 2 seconds can see that you're not one of those dads who is like, peace out, I'm going, out for 6 hours, I'll see you later. You can tell that you are very, very present, very appreciative of your wife, very present with your son, Levi. Now, I wanted to ask you, just because this may be me projecting onto you, but does any part of you wonder, because you've not only just done this now, but you also you mentioned in college, you defended your thesis, published a paper, had a 4.0 GPA, passed your PhD candidacy exams, a dual master's and bachelor's degree, and earning NCAA Division I All-American in the 10K. Does any part of you feel that, you find it hard to kind of feel like you've done enough? I see this because I see myself in you, in the things that you say, and I find myself kind of doing the same thing, trying to do more, trying to be successful in all these things, trying to juggle all these things. Does any part of you struggle with, if you look deep into yourself, struggle with kind of saying, you know what, I've done enough. It's okay for me to just rest and be still and not try and do all these things to perfection? Or do you think there's something about you that's unique that you can handle kind of juggling all these balls at the same time?
I think there's something unique about me. I think being that performance focused. After college in 2010, I had a very unique opportunity where I was working towards my PhD, having passed the PhD candidacy exams, and my advisor took a position at the National Center for Atmospheric Research and had offered us graduate students the ability to finish our dissertation doing research in Boulder while getting a Penn State PhD. Mm-hmm. And I had already passed the candidacy exam, so I had the opportunity to do that. I didn't need to be sitting in on classes anymore. So I moved to Boulder, but I actually took 2 years off and did not work on school. I felt that I was just a little burned out. I felt that I needed to just quote unquote focus on running. And what ended up happening was I overtrained. I ran worse. I lost some of that purity and enjoyment of the sport. And it only happened once I went back to graduate school and finishing the dissertation research at NCAR that I had much more impactful results. I started running PRs. I love the sport a lot more. So for me personally, I feel like I need that right balance. And you can read a bajillion books and podcasts on work-life balance. The fact is the balance will never be perfect. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be consistent. It's never going to be easy. But when you're aware of that, it's okay that sometimes things skew one way or the other, as long as you stay true to your principles and your mission statement in life. And for me, my family comes first and foremost. And, I need a career to support my family. And running is very much a passion. And I am doing everything I can to be the best athlete I can be. But it takes real compartmentalization to say, when I am a runner, I am a runner. When I am a husband and father, I am a husband and father. I am not a runner at that time. Mm-hmm. And really just being able to be present and focused on any given moment really makes everything more impactful. And you don't spend so much time thinking about, I spent 9 hours working today. I spent 2 hours running. I spent 3 hours with my family. Is that the right balance? It's like focus on your kind of principles and your mission. And I feel like the rest kind of falls into place. And when you make a mistake and you go too far one way, you can correct it. It's not like you're stuck in the same job or the same career forever. Go out there and get it.
That's so good, and nice to hear you say that as well. And I think you're absolutely right there. And I think the key word you said was the compartmentalization. I was never very good at that. Like if I had been worrying about something, I'd go on my run, I'd take it with me to process it. I'd take things with me to bed and be thinking about them all night. And I think, when I was in that stage of trying to do so many things at the same time, that was where I came into trouble. Whereas, as you've said, when you're running, you're running. When you're working on your work, you're doing your work, but you're also not, like you said, over analyzing it and looking at assessing it to see if it's acceptable. So it's really interesting to hear that perspective from you. And thank you for sharing that with us. Cause I think that is kind of unique, and it's okay to say that you can't just concentrate on one thing one thing in your life and be 100% all in. And like you, I can't handle that either, just doing one thing, because it becomes too intense and I overdo it. So thank you for sharing that. And just to kind of wrap up here, I think people would love to hear, you mentioned Steve Jones earlier, being coached by him. Tell us what that is like, having Steve Jones as a coach, because I'm sure people are wondering.
Jonesy, as we affectionately call him, he cares more for us as athletes, as individuals, than I really ever thought possible as a post-collegiate coach. He charges us the smallest amount that I'm sure doesn't even cover his gas to get to and from workouts. The time and energy he puts into us, he says, is giving back to the sport, and he loves it. He loves seeing us have success and go through the trials and tribulations of distance running, much like he did. And if you don't know Jonesy, he broke the world record in the marathon back in either 83 or 84. He ran this incredibly gutsy race in Chicago, going through the half in like 101.40 and fading, but still winning. But Jonesy also had his bad races as well. And he's happy to share those with us, much like although I guess he's rare to talk about his successes, but he's about us as athletes and not trying to live through us and not trying to seek gratification. He's really just so pure with the reasons of why he coaches. You just feel this incredible gratefulness, this sense of pride, and just pure thankfulness that a coach dedicates so much of his time to giving back. And then the flip side is I've never met somebody who pushes you harder than Jonesy. When I joined the group, I had pretty quick, good results. I mean, our workouts are hard. So I ran a really good half marathon. I won the Great Aloha Run in Hawaii. I set a PR, I think at 15K. And I meet the man for coffee or tea. And I was like, yeah, I think things are going great. And he's like, yeah, I think you're missing the boat. And I was like, huh? And he's like, I want you to blow up in workouts. He's like, all of your workouts are good. He's like, I want you to push through to where you didn't think you could go. He's like, when you start blowing up occasionally in workouts, I know that you tried your absolute best and you're going to get to be better than you thought possible. And I will never forget this conversation. And I poured myself into those workouts. And I was somebody who likes longer distance, type of workouts. And Jonesy's philosophy is, generally three hard, fast, shorter workouts a week. And I was like, all right, my weakness is, 1 to 2 minute repeats. I am going to attack these like I've never attacked before. And a couple of months later, I took my half marathon PR from 104.59 to 103.16. And it was one of the most inspiring races. I was so incredibly proud of that performance, but it came from a coach who was like, yeah, you're working hard, but you're not really pushing past your limits. And I'll forever be grateful for that. And I hope I continue to push like I did after he told me that.
Yeah, well, really cool giving us the insight there. Thank you so much. And for anyone listening, you can go listen to Steve Jones on the Running for Real podcast, episode 20. I will put links in the show notes so you can go listen to that. And you will kind of, what Tyler's saying will make a lot more sense when you hear his story and kind of what he was known for. All right, 2 more quick things. 1, your favorite movie is also my favorite, maybe second favorite movie of all time, The Greatest Showman. Why is that your favorite?
Well,
don't hear many guys saying that.
It comes with a good memory. So my wife and I took a vacation to Switzerland a couple of years ago, and we watched it on the plane on the way there. And it's just uplifting. There's, challenges that the lead character goes through. It's just like, I don't know, maybe I relate it to running and the ups and downs and trying to shoot for big goals. Yeah, and it's a good soundtrack to listen to when running too, if you need some motivation.
For sure. That's kind of what, like, I kind of honestly, and I've said this before, that I feel like sometimes, like, I resonate so much with, what's his name? Barnum. I feel like so many ways I resonate, like the million dreams part where he's just got all these big dreams, and then kind of everything's going well, and it's, he's just trying and he's driving, and that kind of relates to the running of the training. But then sometimes you overshoot and you push yourself too hard, or you forget what's important in life and everything crumbles apart, and you have to remind yourself that it's not all about the success. Like for me, I feel like that it's like the stages of my life that I keep going through. And bringing myself back to, reminding myself that I don't need to achieve things to be loved, kind of thing. So I just love that film, and I love seeing that was your favorite too. Although obviously you said you've got a bit more of a story with it. And finally, just quickly, ultra shoes. Which ones are your favorite? for, you can give maybe 3 pairs, what you like using for what.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about Ultra is just the variety of great shoes. Mm-hmm. The trail shoes, I love the Superior. Running in the mountains in Colorado, they're a phenomenal shoe, Superior 4.0. For the daily runs, I don't know if there's ever been a shoe created better than the Escalante. It's just like, it's so comfortable. It's like the right softness. It gives back. It's just a great shoe. And then on the racing front, I think people don't talk about the Vanish enough. It's like a 3.9 ounce racing flat. I feel like if you're going to do anything from the mile to the 5K, I even wore it for a 10-mile PR when I ran 47 minutes. I think that's a really great shoe. But the marathon shoe, the Escalante Racer and the Solstice, I've had really good success with, and I like those, and Ultra continues to innovate, and I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, well, thank you so much to Ultra for supporting both of us. Thank you so much to you, Tyler, for sharing with us and allowing us to get to know you. We appreciate you. And where can people go find out more about you if they want to follow along?
Social media, TrackTie is Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and keep on going. We look forward to following you in the next set of adventures.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks for having me on today.
My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to that episode with Tyler. I hope you got a lot from that episode. There's so many things we talked about that could easily be related to our own lives wherever we are at within our own running, particularly what he said about learning to enjoy the journey, kind of whatever these curveballs life throws at you, particularly the ones you can't control, like what we have been are going through right now. I hope you enjoyed that episode with him. I really think he's a great person for us to learn from, and just someone that he hasn't been on too many podcasts to learn his story. So I wanted to bring you someone a bit unique that could kind of bring a message of more than just, I can run fast. So I hope you really enjoyed that episode, and I encourage you to go follow him. You can also check out those shoes he mentioned if you are a man who has been looking for which Ultra shoes to try. Remember, you can enter to win a free pair. One person is going to win a free pair from Ultra every month by going to tinamuir.com/Ultra. If you enter once, you're entered for the rest of the year. I also would like to thank Generation UCAN for sponsoring this episode, and I'm really enjoying trying out the new plant-based protein powders and have enjoyed making them into kind of essentially a chocolate milkshake, and I think you guys will love them too. So you can go to generationucan.com/Tina Muir. And next week we have Grayson Murphy on the show, which this is going to be a very different episode because Grayson has had a lot of things kind of line up for her. Things have really kind of gone her way, been very successful very quickly, but there's a lot that comes with that can be difficult to deal with, and things that you might not expect. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode with Grayson Murphy, and she's another person who hasn't really been featured too much, but has a great story to tell. So my friends, we are in May. I'm recording this in March. I am hoping that things are coming down a little bit, although not too optimistic, but hopefully I am wrong and things are going well for you. But if you do need someone to talk to, if you really are struggling right now, know that you can always email me, tina@tinamuir.com, and I will be happy to help you. Actually, that's not true. If you email me while I'm on my maternity leave, which I'm having start, I think, the 18th of May, if you email me in the 3 months after that, I might take a little more of a delayed response, but I promise you my assistant Amber will get back to you very quickly. She'll pass along your message, and I will be there for you as best I possibly can. But I want you to know that I can be there for you, and if you need someone to vent to, I am here. All right, friends, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.